All right, well, we're here for INKED magazine. Dave Navarro, cover story.
Backstage on the Ink Master set.
This is actually my room adorned with my posters that make me feel like I'm not on a set of Ink Master. Give me a little flavor.
Yeah.
Things that I love.
We tend to hang out in here more than anywhere else on set.
Everybody, I would say, if you're watching this, you know who Dave Navarro is. And a lot of people, over the last many years now, that we've been doing Ink Master.
Many years.
The reoccurring question is, why the fuck is Dave Navarro a judge on a tattoo show?
I get that a lot.
You get it a lot, and I get it a lot.
I bet you do. What do you say?
Well, I say a lot of things.
Well, what I say is that, number one, I have a history of getting lots of tattoos. Some are really good, some are really terrible. I know the difference. I've been a big part of the community and just a fan of the art for many, many years. But more so than not, and I don't think they hit the point enough on the show, is that I'm supposed to be the guy that goes into the shop and buys tattoos from you guys. I'm the guy who is the customer. I'm the client. So there needs to be a voice when it comes to the judging in terms of someone who's not coming at it from an artistic standpoint and not coming at it from a technical application standpoint, but just an overall, like if I was a canvas walking into the shop, would I be stoked with that tattoo? So there's that aspect, and that's really what my role is supposed to be, in addition to just like laying out the rules and what we're doing for the day.
Well, that's it. I mean, it's pretty much what I say to people. I'm like, Dave Navarro has an amazing taste in art. Dave is an incredibly talented artist in his own. He has his own art form that he is at the top of the game in. A lot of people's, favorite bands were influenced, if not by your band, by bands that were influenced by your band.
For sure.
That being said, me and Nunez are on the show. We look at things technically. You look at things for artistic value. Things, at the end, a tattoo has to look good.
Yeah.
And the three of us together, we work really well together.
Yeah,
the other thing
so
I say
too.
to people is, you got to have a host. But any judging panel, you need variety
For sure.
within the opinions, or
sure.
else it's not truly being critiqued on all levels.
Right.
So that being said, I mean, I can debate this and I can answer anybody's questions on why you're a part of the show. I love that you're a part of the show.
I fucking love it.
And I think that over time it's proven that it's a good fit.
Yeah, I love it. I love you guys. I love doing the show. And like I said, man, it's nothing but inspirational for me. Whether it's somebody goes home first, whether it's somebody wins, whether it's anybody in between, like just watching people with passion who believe in their work and want to step into the arena like that, I think victory goes to them no matter what. Because there's a lot of people who sit back on the couch and say, I could do that, but they're not doing it. It's really weird, man. I get stopped on the street now by people who think that I'm the Ink Master guy, and they have no idea that I play music.
Yeah.
And it's just the weirdest thing. There's a whole new generation of people who just only know me from that.
Well,
this thing has really become something I don't think any of us expected.
Yeah. Well, to get into the music side, obviously, many years with the band that you've been with. You've played with other bands, but you are also, I would say, more so than a lot of people that are in bands, you are really more in tune to the music industry and really in a tight-knit group of other people like you that are a ton of people from other bands that are all not even from the same area, that all communicate, collaborate.
Yeah.
It's like there's certain people in the music industry that have reached a certain level to where it's time to like invite a special guest to play guitar on this song. Like, there's a few of you out there, you know, people like, oh, Billy Gibbons gonna play with the song. Dave Navarro's gonna. You've played with people that are like nothing like your genre. You've played with hundreds of different bands, different arenas.
Well, what's weird about that is I really see that as my hazing. So yet another parallel with the artists on Ink Master is like, someone may be a great black and gray artist, and that's what they do at home in their shop. And then we invite them here, and they have to do new school. Japanese. They have to do Japanese, traditional, whatever the thing may be on a certain day. And like that was my hazing, like just kind of playing with like all different artists and kind of learning how to fit into different musicians and play with different people and lock in with different rhythm sections and so forth. So that was, I'm really grateful for that. And I'm in a band right now called the Royal Machines, which you've been to many times.
Great.
And we're just a bunch of dudes that get together and we're
from other bands.
From other bands, we get together and we play cover songs with, you name it. Steven Tyler, Lou Reed joined us.
I've seen it.
Billy Gibbons, anybody, Macy Gray, like the weirdest.
Zach
Tiffany.
Wild.
Tiffany played with us. Tiffany played with us on the same night that like Steven Tyler played.
Yeah.
It was just weird. So it's this big like amalgamation of artists that get together and just kind of feed off each other, and we just do music because we love music.
You've done a lot of stuff with Music Cares.
Right.
Tell me and tell us, what are you trying to do with the Music Cares? Who are you trying to reach and who are you trying to help?
Well, there's a number of things. Music Cares is a great foundation. It's been around for a long time, and it was founded years and years ago and is now part of the Grammy Association. And Music Cares has always been there for musicians and struggling addicts in the music industry, whether it's, the lead singer or the monitor guy or the lighting guy or, a guitar tech or whatever. Anybody who's struggling with drug addiction, substance abuse.
Which you know
Which
a lot
I
about.
certainly have. I'm an ex-junkie. One of the worst that most of my friends have ever seen. When I got clean years ago, I wrote a book with Neil Strauss all about my ups and downs with drug addiction. And at one point, before the book came out, I was like, I don't feel good making money off telling stories about some of the darkest times of my life. And in that book, I kind of talk about some other people. So the one solution that I had was that all the proceeds from that book went to a greater good, and it went to Music Cares. So that was around 2001, and that's when I got involved with them. And since then, I've had the opportunity to work with them and reach out to musicians who are struggling or addicts that are, close to death or need treatment and can't pay for it. Music Cares steps in and provides that care, puts people right into treatment, gets them on the road to recovery. But they've also really branched out in the world of mental health awareness, which is really something that I'm passionate about because, I'm a survivor of violent crime. I'm a survivor of drug addiction. And with all of those types of turbulences in somebody's life, a lot of trauma comes along with it and a lot of emotional malady and sometimes mental disorders happen. And so what we want to do is we want to pull the covers off the whole stigma around mental health and say, number one, it's okay because lots of people suffer from this and there is help available and you're not alone. And just knowing that sometimes is inspiring to people, and Music Care is there to help. And so, they have worked with a lot of friends of mine that have done really well, and then they've worked with a lot of friends of mine who ultimately haven't done well. But over the past year, I lost a couple of really dear friends that were artists that I've played with and toured with for long periods of time, and they were successful, and they had everything, and they ultimately decided to leave. They chose the path out and left everybody with a huge hole in our hearts and their fan base. And that really inspired me and my partner Billy Morrison to create an organization called Above Ground, which is there to raise money for Music Cares so they have assets to help people in need of recovery.
Well, I would say with people taking their own life and with the subject of suicide, I think that there's, whether people are famous or not, whether people are successful or not, the one thing that a lot of people that take their own life have in common are that from the outside, most people think that those people were doing great.
Yeah.
And that is the problem, is that a lot of people feel okay now talking about they had drug problems, because it's become so many things over the years. And it's a big move about recovery. But when somebody has a mental health issue, people are less reluctant to tell people that they're depressed or tell people that they don't feel well, that feel well in their head, and that ends up them leading down this road where it's secrecy, and then by the time they're gone, people are like, there's only a few people that really know them well enough to know the problem.
There's a couple of reasons for that. I think there's a tremendous amount of shame attached to asking for help, and a lot of people feel shame about it. Whereas my message is, and what I try and tell people is that it's a great strength to share your vulnerability. It's a great strength to reach out and say, hey, I'm suffering, I don't know what to do. And I'll tell you, man, and you know this better than anybody, that I personally have gone through that.
Yeah.
And I personally was very, very close. And so I know what that emptiness and loneliness and hopelessness feels like. And if I didn't have the people around me and I didn't reach out and I didn't make what I was going through known, I may not be here. And thankfully, because I did and because I sought, professional help and in addition, reached out to my friends for support, who knows what would have happened. But I think that the real strength is knowing that reaching out for help, whether it's a therapy, whether it's a best friend, whether it's a wife, whether it's a program of some kind, whether it's treatment, whether it's psychiatry, who gives a fuck as long as you're breathing?
Over the last 30 years, it's become normal for people to seek help for drug addiction.
Sure.
And so people that want to get off drugs, they'll go to their friends and they'll say, hey, I'm on heroin, or I'm on oxycodone, or I'm on this and I need help. And it's become a normal thing to ask for help.
Yeah.
What we need to tell people is that no matter what your problem is, whether it's alcohol, drugs, depression, or just straight up feeling fucking insane, it's okay to ask for help.
Absolutely.
And once I understood that, I was like, well, now it makes sense. Like at first I was just like, okay, of course we tell everybody don't kill yourself, but that doesn't help.
But here's something that I think you're touching upon, which I think is really interesting about it all, is that, especially when you look at, first of all, it's an epidemic of mass proportions on a global level, and it affects and it affects everybody from the rich and famous and the powerful to the man next door. However, when it comes to like a lot of these celebrity suicides that we've been hearing about and seeing about, and especially it feels like it's been more frequent, I'm not a doctor, so I can't speak to it on a psychological level, but my instinct is, having been there, is that, first of all, drug addiction and reaching out for drug addiction is so commonplace and welcomed in the society that it's almost the norm, right? And it's almost like, well, the guy was partying too hard, so now he needs to take it easy. That's kind of the stigma that goes along with that. Whereas depression and being suicidal is much more lonely and isolating, and you're not being depressed with a house full of people. You know what I mean? You're getting high maybe with a house full of people and it's a party and you're fucked up. But depression is the loneliest, saddest, most isolating thing. And when you see all these celebrity deaths going on, my theory about it is that it gets lonelier because you got the job, you got the money, you got the girl, you got the fame, you got all these goals that you put out in front of yourself that you thought were gonna fix you, because ultimately there was a broken hole in your heart. So that's what caused us to be that extroverted, to seek that kind of validation, that kind of attention, that kind of wealth and acclaim. And when we reach that moment where all those things have been given to us and answered and we've achieved them all and we still feel like shit, that's when it's the loneliest. Because now you can't even reach out to a friend because your friends say, what have you got to be depressed about? You've got this, that, and the other thing. And these are the things that people want in life, and you have all those things. So what's the problem?
And that's what a lot of people don't understand. And people see that so-and-so took their own life, and they're like, well, that guy had everything.
I don't understand.
But I think it's the message we need to portray to the youth and the younger people that see all these things and are influenced by these people. Like if somebody's depressed and they don't think they can make it, and then the person they're looking up to can't make it.
That's right.
We need something needs to happen. Awareness needs to be out there, and everybody needs to know that they can find someone to count on.
I also think it's important to know, and it's a case-by-case basis, and that's why it's so hard to generalize, but in a lot of these cases, there are physiological reasons and medical reasons in the brain in terms of synapses firing in different directions and different neural pathways that are causing the depression, right? So even if you look up to someone who ultimately took their own life, that's not them saying, here's an example of what you should do, or here's a possible way out for you. What we need to do is let it be known that this is an illness, and illnesses need to be treated. This isn't an example of a way out. This is an example of an illness gone wrong. Ultimately, what I have found, which has been a really vital tool for me, is that once I got to a place where I could get myself together and feel like I had a good solid foundation, that to be able to speak out and to talk and give back to other people is a great rewarding way to embrace that gift of being able to find your foundation. So that's why I speak out about it, because I know that it helps others, but speaking out about it helps me.
Yeah.
And that's how it works. It's the whole concept of giving back what's been freely given to you.
And using every platform, every soapbox you can stand on to get that message out. Like, you get the chance to be this story with INKED magazine.
Yeah.
We don't want to just talk about, the cool tattoo that happened last week or whatever. Talk about real issues that people might need help with.
Yeah, I mean, this whole thing came about because I got asked to be involved in a contest that INKED magazine was doing, and then this is kind of evolved into this conversation now, which I think is I'm really honored to be here and talk about it with you and share that with you guys, because something that really matters to me, and like, here's the thing, in my case, my mom was murdered when I was a kid. I had a terrible drug addiction. I had a lot of different traumatic events that happened in my life, right? So an outsider might say,
and you had very early young success, which is
a mindfuck
on someone in your situation.
Right. So, but the point I'm making is that I more than likely would have struggled with depression without all those things happening.
Yeah.
Because to me, in my case, it's a medical issue that needs addressing. So, I don't want to put it out there that, like, you need all this trauma to happen to justify your depression. Depression is depression.
Yeah.
How you feel is how you feel. It doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter what your backstory is. Treatable depression is rampant among everybody. And I also kind of feel that, and I've watched it progress over the years, and I might get shots fired for saying this, but I think that the growing importance that society has put on social media is a fucking massive contribution to it, because it's a lot of
It's just amplified times 1,000.
It's amplified, but it's a lot of people comparing how they feel to other people's streams.
Yeah.
So, how come I don't have my life on the boat? How come my skin isn't perfect? How come I don't have all those things? It's because we're not aware that these are selected images that people are putting out, myself included, to portray, whatever we want to portray. And like I posted the other day, it's like, no one's really posting a picture of themselves crying in a fetal position. You know what I mean? Flashback Friday to that time I was suicidal. You know what I mean? Like, and so what's comparable in the world and what's visible at our fingertips every day is an idyllic way of what life is supposed to look like by everyone we know and everyone we follow. And it just wasn't like that. And I think the really sensitive people that are struggling with depression, they internalize that stuff. And listen, we know as grown men, like, that it is what it is, and that's, we've definitely had our times with it, but I think that it's really dangerous for, people to try and feel like they have to live up to some kind of exemplary idea that's on social media. And it's also full of really negative hate and bullying, and I think that's really dangerous too, especially when you're talking about someone who's fragile to begin with. But there's a strong tie between, we're both in fields where we set our own hours, where we basically do what we want to do, where we're creative, where we're kind of we don't really conform to sociological ideas,
which is dangerous because you could fall off the cliff any fucking minute.
But there's a real hand-in-hand dynamic with music and tattooing that, especially back in the day, where we were all just kind of like doing what we want to do when we want to do it, and like fuck everybody else, and that's who I am, and you got to invent who you were and believe in that. But I've known, we've lost a lot of tattooers to drug addiction for sure. And even like, how was it when you saw one of our own winners, Scott Marshall, died of a drug overdose? I mean, he was one of the most talented dudes we've ever had here.
I personally think he was the best tattooer that we've had on this show. I think that he was a very tortured person. Mm-hmm. But as soon as he was doing pretty good when he had to work hard to get where he was going, and then success just adds fuel to the fire. Mm-hmm. And if you're going it helps you get to where you're going quicker. So if he's going down a dark road, that success
Absolutely.
almost pushes him down the dark road.
Sometimes when someone's acting out, it's hard to really determine that that's what they're doing, because that's just how he is, and he's just fucking crazy like that. And I on the one hand, I really appreciate the latitude that our worlds provide us, but on the other hand, it's like there are warning signs. I know for a fact that we'd heard of and seen Scott Marshall like really fucked up at conventions, and if you look in hindsight, there were signs. When it came to Chester Bennington from Lincoln Park, who that I played with him all the time,
and to most people, like, I met him, he seemed like the most positive, outgoing,
absolutely
person, and he was an inspiration and to a lot of people, but he was also a strong, positive role model to his family.
Couldn't be a nicer guy.
I would have never guessed.
Hardest worker I ever knew.
I would have never guessed that he was
down that road. That guy was simultaneously in 2 massive bands. He had a family, I think, of 6 kids or so. Some were adopted, some, but he helped raise them. He had a farm of animals. I mean, couldn't have asked for more wealth. Had a loving wife. The kind of guy who would get done with a gig and then help, the crew load out into the trucks after a show. Just couldn't be a sweeter guy.
I think time has proven again that you are a strong part of the tattoo community. I think that the tattoo community is not just tattooers, shop managers, shop helpers, the family of people in tattooing, because someone's whole family, that if you're a tattooer and you're supporting your family with it, then your family is in the tattoo industry.
Fuck yeah.
And there's way more clients and canvases and whatever you want to call them. There's way more clients and people getting tattooed than there are tattooers.
Oh, I mean, if this show was about you guys all just buying tattoos off each other, it wouldn't be that interesting.
But I'm just saying, the tattoo community, the majority of the tattoo community is not actually the artist.
I know that, to the viewer at home, it just looks like, we're trashing tattoos and sending people home. But what I really like about this outlet for the tattoo community, and I know a lot of the tattoo community doesn't like what we do, but what I think we do is we offer a platform for people to be seen.
Shows like Star Search and American Idol came on, and people that have never played a live concert before were instantly famous.
100%.
And so a lot of old school musicians fought against that premise and said, "Hey, this is bullshit. I fucking paid my dues to get where I'm at." But now, American Idol and these other shows, that's the norm.
That's the way it is.
And so the same thing with Ink Master started. People were like, well, I've been tattooing for 20 years and I had to travel the country and travel the world and build my name up, and now there's some kid that could have been tattooing 4 years, comes on Ink Master and shows off to the world that it's a bigger platform, it's a larger megaphone, it's a bigger broadcasting. So it's like, that's why we get a lot of blowback from tattooers.
I understand
in this industry. You're like, fuck that show, that's bullshit, I did it the real way, these kids are fucking... These kids today are just doing what is given to them. These things and these platforms and this show is bigger than any of us.
Yeah.
And people, I get scrutinized for being on here.
You did?
A lot.
Really?
Seasoned long-term tattooers, I won't mention names, but have scrutinized me, why would you do that? Why are you on that show, blah, 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 it's against our industry, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, hey man, like it or not, the future is happening every minute.
Yeah.
You can either be a part of it or you can fight it. You're not going to win. And I honestly believe that I came here with good intentions, and I came here with the love of tattooing, and I feel like I've made a positive impact.
Oh, for sure.
On the outcome.
They
could have got 1,000 other people that would have been terrible.
A lot of times in between tattoos, people ask us what we do because they're tattooing for 6 hours. And a lot of times, Oliver and I get together, I break this out, and we do a little thing we call in-between takes. And we're going to do that right now. This is a little Neil Young with Ollie on the mic. having us,
Thank you,
Synced
guys.
Magazine. Thanks for stopping by.